Shalom everyone. So this time we're going to watch a lecture. This lecture it's two parts. We're gonna see part number one. It's about the Jewish people in India. This one is about the Cochin Jews. The reason I absolutely wanted to share this with you is because, like I'm saying, I'm studying a lot about the Jewish people all over the world, especially in India, also outside the things I am showing in this channel. And I know I thought that maybe to like this time it will be interesting to show you the things I'm looking at and what I am searching. So thank you so much for all your recommendation. There is a huge list. I will try to watch all of them. I will try to make videos about them. But right now it is important to me to show you exactly what I am trying to study. So yeah, let's start the video.
The origins of the Jews of India go back to the ancient period, and we basically have four different types of population that inhabit the subcontinent. First of all, you have the Cochin Jews, who live on the Malabar coast here in the southern part of the subcontinent. And then you have the B'nai Israel, and they're sort of like circled by this green square box here, and they're primarily a little bit to the north near the city of Mumbai. And then you have the so-called Baghdadi Jews, who are not necessarily all from Baghdad, and they are concentrated in Kolkata, but also located in some of the populations where Jews had previously resided. And finally, the so-called Paradesi Jews, who are spread out in a few centers, also found within the recognized population centers that we noted. Let's have a look at these four distinct type of Jews in a very quick overview. First of all, let's begin with the Cochin Jews, who are the earliest Jews recorded in India. They certainly date from the ancient period. We know from the text of the Hebrew scriptures, the Tanakh, that there are several words that are related to Sanskrit and Tamil,
Because
which are
the
most likely connected to the trade
yeah,
that went
exactly.
on between ancient Israel and ancient India. There are terms primarily for like various goods and gems and things like that. There's also a possibility that this remarkable, mysterious Ophir, that is the source of much of Solomon's wealth, may have been a place called Sufpara at the mouth of the Indus River, which also housed a very ancient civilization. But we know from multiple sources, from not only Jewish sources, but Greek sources and Roman sources and so on, that there was significant amount of trade, particularly from the west coast of India and the Middle East. By the time you get to the medieval period, the Radhanite traders, who we spoke about in a previous class, have been traveling all through this route and definitely are engaged in trade all across the European and the Asian continents, and they're described primarily in Arab historians. So we know that there are Jews who are visiting India and who are in possibly setting up kinds of settlements in India. The first of those settlements is the so-called Cochin Jews. Now, we know of their history from their local legends, but one of the most fascinating early documents that we have that specifically refers to them are the series of three copper plates that are apparently a type of a charter that were issued to the Jews of Cochin from a local king. And this kind of like sets the tone for much of the history of Cochin Jewry, a remarkable level of, you know, coexistence with the local population. One of the things that's quite fascinating about this period is that there seems to have been no indigenous anti-Semitism. I know, right? That's like so hard to believe, but there seems to be very, very few incidents of any kind of organized anti-Jewish impetus. This may be related to the fact that, pagan empires, ironically, tend to be more tolerant of other religions than monotheistic faiths. Perhaps that's because of the approach being, like we have lots of gods. What's one more anyway? That kind of thing. But at any rate, that seems to be the case in Cochin. So these three
And also,
copper
they're not
plates
trying to convert
offer
anyone
some kind of
all the
charter,
time.
which essentially a promise to a possibly legendary local Jewish figure named Joseph Rabban, giving the Jews of Cochin all kinds of privileges, many of them symbolic in nature, like the right to use a parasol, which is apparently something reserved for royalty and things like that. The plates themselves date from probably the 11th century, really old, and that, of course, does not speak to the origins of the Cochin Jews, which could have gone back easily to the ancient period. They are written in the Malayalam language in the Vatelutu script. Yes, I pronounced that. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And
Always
one of
scared of
the factors
mispronouncing
that we have
stuff.
to bear in mind when we're studying India is that it is so far from homogenous. Just like when we talked about Africa, there are literally dozens upon dozens of cultures with multiple languages and multiple faiths and so on. So yeah, although it does have one kind of like geographic description, it is, one contiguous territory. India is really made up of many, many different civilizations. Now, the Cochin Jews were fascinating in that they seem to have not really been deeply connected to the traditional rabbinic or even the later Karaite iterations of Jewish thought, and they seem to have, evolved with local indigenous leadership that led to a lot of really fascinating kind of local customs. Like, for example, this is a paroches, a curtain that is placed in front of the ark that holds the Torah. This is a common element in synagogues all over the world, and of course harkens back to the temple where a curtain would separate the Holy of Holies from the rest of the temple grounds. But a fascinating element in the Cochin Jewish customs is that they incorporate the skirt or other type of clothing of a bride into the parochet itself, which is a fascinating kind of idea that actually brings to mind some interesting Kabbalistic references to the Torah as a kind of me'orasa, as a bride that is to be married. Fascinating kinds of things. But at any rate, they incorporate that right into the paroches. Also fascinating, there was a custom that on the eve of the Sabbath, on Friday afternoon, a synagogue functionary would take a taper and light it from the Ner Tamid, from the eternal flame that burns inside the synagogues. In modern synagogues, it tends to be an electric bulb that's sometimes made to look like a fire, but obviously in medieval, pre-modern times, they would have to use an actual flame. And he would carry this taper to all the homes where they would have these kind of like oil things set up on the outside of their homes, and he would like share the light of the synagogue with all the Jewish homes on the eve of the Sabbath. Beautiful kind of idea, I think. So the Cochin Jews changed significantly with the arrival of the Portuguese. This is the first major influx of Western Europeans that occurs in the age of discovery, when people like Vasco da Gama are making their way around India and exploiting the region for trade. This is an interesting Portuguese depiction of what they thought the Jews of Malabar looked like, and represented that backwards to Europe. And there's an interesting kind of thing happening with the arrival of the Europeans, where some of the local elites, the Jewish elites, are sometimes co-opted by the Portuguese. One of those is none less than Gaspar de Gama, who was an interesting Jewish character who was apparently forcibly baptized by Vasco da Gama himself, the great explorer. He took the name da Gama after his patron, as it were. And then he went on to a rather brilliant career as a translator for the Portuguese, helping them negotiate the vagaries of Indian culture and language. Fascinating kind of elements. But we'll talk more about the impact of the Europeans shortly. Here's an interesting photograph from 1978. You can see in the foreground is a Hindu temple, and in the background, with that distinct clock tower, is the Cochin Jewish synagogue, one of several, actually. They actually were established little bit further to the north in a town called Shingli until in the 14th century it was wiped out by a big flood, and then they moved a little bit further to the south. And they have this famous synagogue with the clock tower on it. Here's another photograph of the tower itself. You can see that
Oh
it
wow,
actually had
cool.
three sides, and on one of the sides, the numbers in the clock were printed in Hebrew. Fascinating. And the proximity of the temple and the synagogue is also one of those testaments to the rather famed coexistence of Hindu and Jewish elements in Cochin.
Cool. Okay, first of all, what he said about the numbers in Hebrew. So we have the same numbers you familiar with. However, some clocks are the numbers are like it's letters instead of numbers. So 1 o'clock is Aleph, A. 2 o'clock is Bet. So and so on and so on. This is actually really interesting. I love learning about what happened to my people all over the world, and especially in a place that didn't try to kill them. So yeah, that is so interesting. I love the fact that he is not only explaining, also showing good and bad things, and also actually having pictures and stuff to show and prove. And I love the fact that the people of Cochin took whatever they saw around them and tried to use them. What they did with the parochet, which is the curtain we put in before the like there is a closet where our holiest book, the Torah, is in there, and then to cover it there is something like some kind of a carpet window. We call it parochet. So there are a lot of parochot all over the world who has different symbols and different stuff around, like that you can see how the world around them affected those people and how they created the parochet. So it's really interesting to see how parochet in Cochin looks like, because you can learn so much from just one parochet, which is it's crazy. It's like a poster that is telling you what is going on. I absolutely loved it. What he said about the fire is something I didn't know, and it's so interesting because on our Shabbat, before Shabbat, we're lighting, most of us lighting, the women like light two candles, one to remember we need to keep Shabbat, and one to actually keeping the Shabbat. And in most of, like he said, in most of our synagogues, there used to be a fire that is really important to, like, the fire was keep burning all the time. So the fact that he was actually went from the synagogue to every Jewish person house and spread this fire is so, it has so much more, like it's so important to us. So just to spread the fire in a good way to all the Jewish people, to help them remember the Shabbat and help them remember we are part of a big community. It is absolutely beautiful, and I love the fact that the Jewish people were able. I know it sounds totally, it's gonna sound weird, but I love the fact that the Jewish people there were able to build a synagogue. This is not something that is like, I know some people are saying, yeah, there are ancient synagogues like all over the place, but there are so many places in the world where Jewish people could not build a synagogue, or when they tried to make something like a small room, a synagogue, the place immediately got destroyed. This is something that happened in so many places in the world. So to see that people can actually not only build a synagogue, but to make it look like this, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, and I absolutely love learning about stuff like this. So this was part one, and we will next week maybe I'll try to do part two of the video. Link to the entire lesson in the description. He has so many other lessons explaining about what happened to Jewish people all over the world, which is interesting for me. I don't know if you guys are into it. Yeah, so thank you so much for staying here and watching this with me. And if you have any questions, write down in the comment section. I'll try to answer them. If not, I will, I don't know, try to find some places that will give you the answer. Or if I could just cannot find or don't know, I'll simply just tell you, sorry, I don't know. So So thank you so much for watching this video and take care, and I'll see you next time. Later.